So if you're thinking about building a deer hunting box blind, but you haven't made a decision on which type of door to put in it, in this video, I'll explain 3 different types of doors for deer hunting box blinds and the pros and cons of each. Now I'll talk about the 3 most common types of deer blind doors, and that would be the trap door, the outward swing, and the inward swing. But I'll start with talking about the pros and cons of the trap door. What I like most about the trap door is that it offers the most stealthy approach into your deer hunting box blind. And by that, you just don't have to expose yourself outside the blind any higher than the floor level of the deer blind itself. And so for that reason, you have a pretty stealthy approach getting up into the deer blind. The next best thing about a trap door would be, or maybe it is the best thing about a trap door, is that when your ladder is underneath your deer hunting box blind, you don't have to worry about ice and snow buildup on your steps. Your ladder is always dry and clean, and for that, you just don't have that hazard. Here in northern Wisconsin, during our 9-day gun season, it's almost a guarantee that we're going to get rain, snow, ice, or all 3 of those things at once on our deer blind during that 9-day gun season. So it's probably the most safe approach from a clean and dry ladder standpoint. So as far as safety goes, I would rate it high in that aspect. Now, a couple things I don't like about a trap door. The main one is probably climbing down out of your blind in the dark at the end of the day through a trap door. That first step is always a little bit scary. I don't always like to turn on a light to get out of my deer blind, because if you've got deer that are kind of in the area, I don't want to alert them to my presence. And by turning on that light, you do that, but you almost have to have that light to climb down out of there because you want to see where you're going. And taking that first step out through a trap door is always a little bit scary in the dark, and it comes with some risk. And another thing, if you've got a trap door open while you're in a blind and you're moving around, or you're moving other people around and chairs around, there's always a chance that you could fall out the hole. It's kind of easy to lose attention to that if you're distracted with other things. So there is a bit of a risk factor with that as well. And one other thing is that you've got to have floor space reserved inside the blind. You got to have, if your trap door is 3 feet by 3 feet, that's how much room you got to have inside your blind as far as space reserved for that. You can't have your chairs sitting in that area. You can't have people in that area when you're climbing in and out. So it does take up a lot of floor space. So that's probably the 3rd con with trap doors. A couple of safety features that I recommend if you are going to build a trap door: paint the top step or maybe all of the tops of your steps white so that they just show up better in low light conditions, so you can just see them better when you're climbing down and up, for that matter. And another one would be to put a lot of grab handles on the wall of the blind that you can grab onto as you're climbing up and out of the blind. I think the best direction to put the hinges on your trap door would be behind you as you're climbing up. So that way the door folds up out of the way behind you, and you've got room to put handles up the front of your blind, and also you've got both sides in which to step off the ladder onto the blind floor, or off the blind floor onto the ladder when you're leaving. The next type of door I'll talk about is the outward swing. What I like most about the outward swinging door is that, well, one, it's probably the easiest to build. You just need to make your door bigger than the opening for your door, and it's the easiest way to keep the elements out. You can put some gaskets on there of your own, but you can really get by without that as long as your door is bigger than the opening. So it's pretty easy to build. That's one of the things I really like about an outward swing door. Second, I like the fact that it swings outward, so you're not swinging it inside, clunking on your chairs or other people. You don't have to move out of the way, move things out of the way to get the door open. So it takes up basically 0 space inside your deer hunting blind when your door swings outward. Now, there's one thing that I really don't like about an outward swing door, and I didn't find this out until I actually built the blind and used an outward swing door, and that is if you try to access your blind on a windy day and the wind's coming out of the right direction and you're not hanging onto your door, the wind's going to grab it and it's going to whip it open, slap it against the side of your deer blind if you don't have a bungee cord or a spring or a stopper of some kind on there. So I guess I wasn't expecting that. That's probably the thing I like the least about that outward swing door, is that the wind can catch it, and if you're not hanging on tight, it can rip it right out of your hands. The other thing I don't care for about an outward swing door is if you're climbing up a ladder and you don't have a landing, and your ladder is just leaning against your hunting blind, you basically almost have to move your body out of the way to get that door open and closed. You can offset your ladder a little bit, but then when you climb out and you're not looking down, you don't want your ladder to not be right below you. So I would recommend, if you do have an outward swing door and you're not going to do a landing or a deck outside of your stand, make that ladder wide. Make it like 3 feet wide so you've got room to shift back and forth on your steps to swing that door out in front of you and then back closed again. I do highly recommend, though, having a platform or a deck for an outward swing door or an inward swing door. I think that creates the most safe environment for getting in and out of your deer blind when you have an inward or outward swing door. Next, we'll talk about the inward swing door. That's probably my favorite. And the reason that the inward swing door is my favorite is because, well, one, it doesn't get caught in the wind. Two, it's a very stealthy approach to swing your door inward versus swinging it outward. It just creates there's just less visual movement on the outside of your blind when you're not swinging a door outside beyond your blind, or there's just less movement going on in the back of your blind. And I like to put the door on the back side, by the way. The least likely direction that you'll have deer when you're coming in and getting out of your blind. That goes with inward and outward swinging doors. Another thing that I like about the inward swing door is if you just want to buy one or get a used one that's already taken out of a garage or a house and it's got brick molds on it already, you just cut your hole and you pop the door in, and it's a piece of cake to put in. The gaskets and the seals and the doorknob is already on there, or the hole for the doorknob's already in it. It's a real easy door to just pop into a blind as long as you've got your, I don't know, they're like 82 inches high. So you need to have at least enough height to do that and enough width depending on the width of your door, but most stands are 3 feet wide, so not an issue there. So because it's really safe with a landing, because it's kind of stealthy with it swinging inward, and the fact that you can just pop one into a deer blind, it makes it probably my favorite door. There are a couple things, though, that aren't so great about that inward swinging door, and that is it's just clunky. When you swing a door inward, you're gonna possibly bump chairs. When you have multiple people leaving a deer blind or getting into a deer blind, everybody's got to shift around that door to get in and out. Not that big a deal, but it's just one thing that you don't have with an outward swing. And finally, it can be a little bit more challenging to build an inward swinging door from scratch. And by that I mean it's just a little bit tougher to keep the elements out, because you do have to figure out how to make gaskets or seals of some kind in order to keep driving rains out of there, unless you don't care about that. But any of us that are putting this much time into a deer blind, you kind of do. So all in all, I think that my favorite all-around deer blind door is an inward swinging door with a ladder and a landing. And by taking it one step further, putting a porch roof over that landing and ladder to help keep the rain and snow and ice off of that ladder when you're climbing up, which makes it the most safe. So there are 3 options for you. I hope it helps you make the decision on which one you want a little bit easier for building your deer blind. Hey, if you haven't checked out my channel, I've got lots of other videos out there specifically regarding deer hunting box blinds. I'll throw a few videos up at the end of this video that you can click into. I'll put a few in the description below, links to those videos. I appreciate you watching this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.